All day long, I beat the shit out of him. Bang, bang, bang up his ass. That's my pleasure.
Yo, what up, Internet? My name is braV, and I can't produce a podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Internet. This is the place where you get anything that you could ever want. And today we are interviewing a phenomenal bass artist from the West Coast. His name is Squirrely Bass, and I just met him. His name is under the veil. People call him Greg, but I don't know. You can't get everybody to call you Squirrely Bass, I guess, these days. Well, maybe you can these days. If you identify as a squirrel, I think you're fine. Greg, you're muted. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the welcome. You can't. It's hard out there as a squirrel. Some people call you Squirrely. Some people call you Greg. Some people call you something in between.
Dude, how'd you get the? Well, I got I was listening to that song. That was a fresh ID that I played you in with, and sounded kind of squirrely. I don't know the word squirrely came to mind. It was kind of funny.
It was kind of just, yeah, man. It was. I mean, Squirrely Bass started. It was like I was basically DJing in like random friends' apartments, in San Diego, and like just always. I always had a different selection of music than everyone. Everyone was playing dubstep and like hip hop and like top 40, and I just come in with some weird bass house stuff, and no one had ever heard of any of it. And basically the name kind of fit. It was like, what kind of energy do I give off when I show up to the party? He's the squirrely guy off in the corner playing the music, and so I was trying to come up with a name with a couple of my friends, and one of them was like, "You're a squirrel. You got to be Squirrely Bass." And that was just it. That was the inception.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's such a genuine come up. I really like that. I gotta ask, how long ago was that? How long have you been Squirrely Bass?
That whole thing started about in 2012. So we're getting on almost 10 years of Squirrely Bass.
Wow. A long time. I can't.
Not all, the most not every year hasn't been the most active for Squirrely Bass, but it's only getting better.
Oh, well, that's quite all right. Have you been, I guess, producing music for that long, or were you kind of DJing around at first?
I started out and I basically around that time period when I started DJing, I also entered like an audio engineering internship and program where I was kind of studying like the basics of audio and um, started interning in a music studio in San Diego. And that kind of between that and the DJing, I kind of realized like I gotta produce music because like what other thing is there for me to do other than make my own music and play it in between other songs that I'm playing live, and that was kind of a motivator for getting into the production side of things.
Gotcha. No, that seems to be a fairly common theme. But where do you go to school, or the internship, if you can?
It was like a I can't remember what the program was called. It was like the Recording Radio and Film Institute. But they kind of have like an internship that they set up with various artists in different fields. And I did like a recording kind of internship with some people at a studio called Signature Sound in San Diego. Um, and the guy I worked with was uh, engineer who'd engineered for like the Foo Fighters. Um, and he had some other credits I can't really remember off the top of my head, but needless to say, he was at such a level that like a lot of what he was teaching me at the time felt really like, holy crap, I have no idea what you're talking about. um, and like he had really vast insight on just the whole industry and music production and especially like mixing and mastering and recording. Um, and all of it was so new to me at the time. So it was very slow process kind of at the beginning, getting used to everything and learning like what anything did from like literally the ground up.
Right. No, that I mean that it's such a daunting task, and the music industry is like a kind of a big beast. So I Can't Produce is kind of like a fake record label recording studio that I kind of made to take the pressure off all that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I think having like I've been around some like legitimate recording studios, or at least ones that have like the hundreds of $1,000s worth of equipment, and one of my friends was an apprentice to a really like a not famous but credited mastering engineer. So I thought, I,
Hmm.
I mean, I think I know what you mean when like there are just sometimes you walk in there and you're like, I really love music, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah. Like you have a scope of what he's talking about, but the place he's at in his understanding of everything is like so far beyond where you are. You're just like, wow.
yeah, yeah, it's
So
more shock and awe more than like, and a little bit of disappointment.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, do you think you've come around that corner? Like, I mean, 9 years after, the start of that project, do you think you've learned a lot more about the industry now that you're like totally found your own corner in it? I'd say, like,
Oh yeah,
you're on a few
definitely.
labels, and I haven't seen you on a lineup, but I also haven't been like looking at so many. Like, I don't know. I just kind of look at the lineups that I go to. Um,
Totally. I've I honestly haven't played a show in the last show I played was about a month before the pandemic.
okay.
Um and like since since then I haven't really played anything. Some offers have come down the line and I just kind of haven't hasn't been quite the right experience, I guess, that I'm trying to step back into when I'm playing a show. And in general, I've kind of just been in the production grind and like really just enjoying that a lot more than I used to. Uh, it just feels like a whole new kind of world of exploration to me right now. Anyways,
Yeah.
I feel like I've definitely like in the last couple of years broken through some kind of personal barriers to like producing, and I've definitely like spent some time working on just like songwriting and better production and playing instruments a little bit more, getting back into like music roots and where all the stuff came from.
Do you play like do you play an instrument? Do you play a real instrument and not just the computer?
Yes, yes, I do actually play the piano. I am
Oh,
actually
okay.
a piano player. I've played classical music for probably like probably about since I was like 6 or 7 was when I like really started taking piano lessons. And I've studied like music theory with various people throughout the years. And um, since I've moved to the Northwest, I haven't taken a lot of kind of structured musical courses, but I've still played a lot. And in the, you know, in between that time, I've picked up bass and guitar, a little bit of guitar, but tried to push myself to play, as many instruments as I can, really.
Yeah. I'm in a similar
feel like
boat.
that understanding really comes together when you're producing. I don't know why.
I always considered production, or a roadblock that I had. I think you've been producing for a lot longer than I have, but a roadblock that I had was not taking the board or the software. I mean, you could apply this to DJing too, as an instrument, kind of like I do with the guitar. I've been a guitar player since I was 12, and I've always thought of that as, yeah, a real instrument. And then there's like my computer music and my computer work. And then I felt like one of the barriers that I had to get over was, wait a minute, no, this is an instrument, and like I'm trying to express myself here. So it's just, I mean, that alone wasn't enough, but the idea was really helpful in planting the seed for like self-expression via computer.
Totally. I feel like on an instrument too, you have like kind of a predetermined way that you're expressing something, and on a computer it's so much more vast. And when you get into it, it's like, where do you start like expressing the idea that you had, especially when you've like just started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, just starting feels a lot closer than it is. And I can't produce it was my second SoundCloud channel that I didn't tell anybody about, because I just wanted to like put stuff on the internet, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then eventually I realized that like I think I just need like people to talk to. I think I'm just like not learning a lot because I'm not like collaborating with people. So I started a little server and whatnot. And I guess, well, I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think some people can just kind of lock themselves in a room and create bangers, and other, like, I don't know, like how did you kind of get into production, I guess, and what were some of the, I guess, breakthroughs that you were just kind of talking about, maybe more recently? Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like you kind of said it there. I feel like there's a couple different approaches. There's some people just lock themselves in a room and just go at it until they make something. And I feel like sometimes it's more like experiential. Like it's almost like having that like creative output has to have some like kind of input, and like something that's happening in your life, or like something you did, or having a new experience, or like going somewhere new, meeting new people, whatever it is, like all of those things kind of create like new feelings and experiences. And I feel like, especially for me, like a lot of the music that I create, it like is influenced by like an experience or thought process or mindset. It's very like fluid with like thoughts and emotions, I guess, when I'm creating. I feel like locking yourself in a room and trying to produce that, it's like kind of it was almost like kind of how I started, really. You just put yourself in front of a computer for like 4 or 5 hours a day and just like do as much as you can, you know what I mean? And follow some tutorials and try to create something that's like, try to create something from start to finish. Give yourself a goal to create something and complete something. And like, I think for a while, like I got to a point where everything I was making was based around a formula, and I was just kind of relying on that formula every time I opened my DAW, and mixing that up and like being more conscious when I like kind of enter my DAW ended up becoming more of a thing. And I kind of started to do like, I did some production kind of one-on-ones with some artists. I worked with Gurf for a little while doing some kind of like production lessons. He was doing some production lessons for a while. And I feel like just like working with people and kind of getting getting my head around like how other people were doing it, especially people who made stuff that I listened to and made stuff that I wanted to maybe not emulate, but you know how when you listen to an artist and you're like, man, I wish I could make a track that like, hit like that had that rhythm and that like that snap to it, and just like it would be little things like that that really clicked for me. Over time, like I never had any background in percussion or anything, but I'd always noticed that people who did have some background in like drums or like who had played drums before they had become a music producer would be able to put together more engaging rhythmic elements.
I'd call it
just
maybe robust. Like,
yeah, totally. Like they know how it's supposed to sound when it comes through. And I feel like this, both the, arrangement of drums and mixing of drums was totally something I wasn't used to. Keyboards, synths, other instruments even like made more sense. But when it came to drums, it was like, this is a whole thing I'm not familiar with.
I think you and I might share that experience because like I said, as a guitar player, I think I was more of a lead guitar player. So with piano, I feel like you kind of have to learn rhythm and then you can focus on lead, but you're always playing chords, I think, with the piano. With the guitar, you don't have to play chords if you don't want to. You can just shred. So I was like always really into just trying to learn like lead parts and melodies and like understanding that part of music. And then I just remember getting to EDM or trying to produce, and I could come up with some fairly decent melodies and maybe even like sample chops. Like I could get those out in my early days, but I had no way to put percussion underneath it. I was completely dumbfounded when it came to like, oh, I think this just needs a drum loop under it now. And then I guess like I could pull a drum loop from somebody, but like making my own was really, really difficult for a while because I didn't have that background in rhythm or percussion. And every time I even got on a drum set, like it was a train wreck. I was just not physically coordinated for it.
It's hard. It's not. It's its own kind of. You need to develop your own coordination for that instrument. It's very unique.
Yeah, I feel like you really got to feel the drums in your bones. Jesus,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a big thud above me. I don't know if you heard that. Scared the shit out of me.
It wasn't quite as big as it might have been for you, but
yeah. So yeah, I was so confused on approaching drums. And my producer friends who started, I've had producer friends with the exact opposite problem, but I get jealous because it almost seems like they can just get further quicker in their careers because of that. But as far as like trap producers go and stuff.
Yeah, the rhythm was always like, I'd send tracks out to people for like, feedback and stuff. And the feedback I'd always get would be something about rhythm, and like, I just never got it. And I feel like in the last couple of years, I've really it's really started to click more. And I don't know if it's that I'm sitting there really thinking about it more when I'm making it, or if it's just, you put a monkey in a room with a typewriter and eventually it's going to write something, the old classic theory.
Yeah. I guess, do you design a lot of your sounds in Ableton? Like for that last ID that I played, I think, yeah, it was,
oh yeah.
So is it all, are you a native Ableton guy? I know our mutual friend 23 Odd Cats is, at least that's.
Oh yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm as native to Ableton as I am to anything else. I started Ableton probably like a year or two after I learned Pro Tools. And I basically got to the point where I was like producing music in Pro Tools and I was like, this sucks, man. I hate this. If there was any other DAW I could use, I would do it. And I had a friend who used FL, and FL didn't really, it just didn't click. I picked up Ableton and in a day I was writing break beats and like chopping stuff up. And I was like, this is great. This is easy. This is exactly what I want.
Nice. I started on Ableton. I've never really used another DAW except Audacity for the meme. So yeah, so what how do you avoid the temptation to go into like Serum or Vital or something like that? Do you just not have it? Are you just extraordinarily content with Ableton? Because I know it's an awesome program, but I always
No,
I get super distracted. I love plugins. You know, I love messing around with whatever I can scrape offline.
I think I did myself a favor back in the early days of production because, I used to be really obsessed with plugins too, and it was like, I got to get this plugin to get this sound, and I would get my hands on all of these plugins, and like I think at one point I had like a old Windows computer that I had outfitted with Ableton, and I had just gotten all these crazy whack like VST plugins. I had like gotten like over 1,000 of them probably. And like there were so many of them I couldn't sift through them, and I was like, let me try to make music with some of these. And I'd like open one of them and it'd be like, oh, this is a multiband compressor. That's not what I want. You'd open the other thing, you'd be like, oh, this is a synth, but it only makes violin sounds. That's not very useful. Like it, things like that. And I think at a certain point I was like, I just got to be able to do this stuff with the Ableton stock plugins, and if I can't do that, then like I shouldn't have anything more complicated. And like I would watch people's tutorials, and like I think back in the day Dr. Derg had a tutorial, and like I just look at the stuff they were doing all with native Ableton plugins, and I'd be like, man, this is just like, it's all basic theory, and like I just need to get the theory, and then it could be applicable anywhere. And I think like around the time I started working with Ableton, I got my hands on a copy of Massive, because I got a MK2 and it came with a copy of Massive, and that really, like, messing around with Massive and doing tutorials in Massive and like kind of learning synthesis from the ground up really gave me a way better understanding of things. And then it was like, once Serum came out, I just kind of was like, well, Massive's in the past. And Vital, I've been getting into Vital. It's really funny because I downloaded it probably like a few months ago, and it was probably more like last December when I was messing around with a lot of production stuff and like getting some new VSTs, and I just like never dove all the way into it, but like I've been seeing all these people using it like the last like week. I don't know why the universe is pushing me towards Vital. I can feel it.
I am the universe pushing you towards Vital. I can't believe it's free. I can't believe it's not Serum, really, is what I've called it. It's I don't know. I love it solely for the fact that I think it's as powerful as Serum, and it's free. Serum's $200.
True.
Yeah. New business model too. It's like they just I think you just pay for like preset packs, which is kind of what everyone's just been getting into now. But I don't know. I love Vital. I don't even like to open Serum anymore. I was never like huge. I mean, I like Serum. I learned Serum. I was trained on Serum. Like I watched hours of tutorials on Serum, but I kind of feel the same way about how you felt, or I feel like I'm getting that feeling with how you felt with Massive. I'm like, oh, bye.
Yeah.
Sorry about
once you find one that's cutting edge and that has all the things you needed in a more streamlined manner, so it's just like easy call.
Yeah. Time to sink thousands of other hours into these YouTube tutorials. So I guess since this is a show, I guess targeted towards anybody who's in my Discord, really. But I Can't Produce is really more for beginners when it comes to producing. What like, where do you start when you're trying to find like a good bass sound, or like if you're trying to get a song put together? Are there times where you start with an intro, or there are times where you start with a drop? Do you try and design like a fat, like where do you like to look for inspiration and ideas?
Like, honestly, it varies. Sometimes I'll start like listening to music, and I'll start hearing some sounds other people are making, and I'll be like, that's an interesting sound. And then I'll just like whip out the DAW and start trying to create something that sounds similar to it. And then kind of like make my own kind of production arrangement, like percussion arrangement around it, and kind of try to fit it into something in a way that's kind of like similar. Sometimes that's how I approach it, and other times I'm like, I have a sound in my head, or I have like a little like loop, kind of like a whole like melodic loop in my head, or like sound idea of sounds that I want to create. So I'll just like open the synth and try to get as close as I can to the thing that I was like kind of hearing in my head.
And
and then
that is an acquired skill.
yes, and that's like, I feel like, especially like over the years, that was definitely something I like really tried to focus on doing, is like, because I'd always get these crazy ideas in my head and be like, man, if I could just, pull out a synthesizer and dial in all those sounds, like I'd have a cool idea there. And that was like a huge motivator for me, like learning synthesis. It was like, it felt more like if I was learning that, I was like learning the DAW like an instrument, I guess. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like, it felt more like you were learning the raw components of it, and like the theory behind it, like the theory behind like sound, even the theory behind like oscillators and the additive synthesis, FM synthesis, all of it.
Yeah, the theory, the actual, it's not even so much music theory as it is like just science, audio engineering. The amount that you're kind of forced to learn when you are trying to synthesize like original sounds, I think is pretty. It's really interesting, and it can be really grueling and maybe daunting at times, but I don't know. I think it's just I mean, if you look at it not within the context, I think the reason I found it so daunting at first was because I was so used to going and approaching music from like a music theory, classical trained eye. Like, what key am I in? What tempo are we at? And so those rules have been getting thrown out the window in like all the like songs I've been listening to recently.
Yeah, like it was funny to me when I got like really into music production, and I like linked up with some people on the internet. Some of the, I was like hanging out in chat rooms, hanging out with the people. I met like the people who ran Lush Selects, which is like one of the labels I'm more connected with, just over one of the ones I've been more connected with over the years. And it baffled me to meet all these producers and then realize half of them had ever played an instrument before, and even fewer of them knew music theory. And they were making stuff that was definitely like, complex and took into account like elements of music theory, but they didn't have any like formal training or background or anything. They just had a keen ear and the ability to create it.
Yeah, no, I find that phenomenon so interesting, just because I was classically trained, and then now I'm like in this genre of music where that happens. I know so many, and I've just worked with so many producers who like are really struggling on the theory, and I'm like, well, we don't really need that right now. We can just put this sample here and down pitch it until it sounds good to us. And yeah. So, where were you meeting like a lot of these? Oh, you said like Discord chat rooms or online chat rooms?
Back then it was like online chat rooms. So there was like, God, Tiny Chat was a thing back then.
Oh boy.
God, what was it called? Turntable FM too. Turntable FM and some of those other sites that they used to like, you'd get on there and you'd stream music. It was like before Twitch really like snowballed like it has the last few years. And I think Twitch might have been a thing around then, but I can't really remember. We had a just random chat rooms all across the internet, anywhere they could stream music.
Which is not Twitch nowadays, but
yeah.
Damn, yeah, I wasn't around for that. I was I started producing in, I'll say 2000, what year, like 2017, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I mean in the context of a lot of the guys that I've been talking to ever since I started this podcast, I thought I was going to be like, I don't know. A lot of these guys have been producing longer than I thought that they would be. So
Uh-huh.
I feel, I guess, a little bit less bad in the fact that I don't have too many releases, or like maybe my skills aren't up to par. But I don't know. Sometimes I see these prodigies making trap beats, and I'm like, I don't even think you had the time to learn music theory. It's like I think you were
Yeah.
just like given Ableton and just like fucking popped out a banger. I have no idea how you do this.
I feel like some of them too, they have like they must have worked with an engineer or someone who like showed them the way to do it because they know
Mm.
how to do it like so well, and it's so like production. As I've worked with more and more people, and especially in person, I realize like production is so specific to each person who makes stuff, and like everyone will like all like you get 10 people in a room working Ableton, and they're all going to make drums and put a track together in a different way, and it's all going to look completely different when they're done with it, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
like, but it might but you know that for all intents and purposes all of those ways that they created are, you know, technically correct and sound good, and like, you know, they're able to do something with it regardless, and like
It was
it would just blow my mind.
it was kind of like real life where I was looking at Ableton tutorials, and other than like very basic functions like play, record, shortcuts, when it came to like designing a sound, I would watch like all these tutorials and I would think, oh, okay, that's how you design a you know, a punchy you know, square wave based sound. And then I'll
Hmm.
watch a different tutorial and they'll say, you know, oh, you never want to approach it in the way that you just learned because that's the wrong. It's just like you get like 20 different contradictions of like how to make the fattest, beefiest bass sound for house music or whatever. And like none of them had the same technique,
Oh yeah.
other than like, this is how you press play. Like they were doing everything different. And I was like, there's no consistency here. Like, and then you start realizing that they all have their own like structures and workflows, and it, yeah, no, I think as a producer, you have to come to realize that you're going to come up with your own specific workflow. It's not going to be anybody else's. And if it is, I mean, I don't know, do with that what you will, I guess. I'm not sure. That's not my goal in music, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
I do have that my goal in music kind of relates to freedom and like again self-expression is really what I
Yeah.
got into producing for. I have that on my question list here. Do you have like like kind of like a goal with your music? Maybe like a sound that you want to achieve, a dream, or like an emotion you wish to invoke when people hear your stuff, or is it just kind of for you? No right answers.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's a deep question for me
It
because
it
like
is.
like I definitely like, could you just ask that question one more time actually?
Do you? Yeah. I think maybe I asked two different questions.
Yeah,
If
yeah, you did.
yeah, I get the first one was, what do you want people to get from listening to your music? I suppose.
Totally. Like, I guess what I'd like to give people is like an experience. I want it to be a multi-sided experience. You know what I mean? But I
Mhm.
still want it to be like something that's approachable and, you know, enjoyable at the end. At least, you know, when you're done, you can say, "Hey, I enjoyed this. This was cool. I, you know, heard something I hadn't heard before." I think that's another angle that I'm going for, is like I really don't want to make anything that sounds like anything else. I kind of want to create my own like sonic world. I kind of almost want to create my own world entirely that people can enjoy and experience, you know, at will, and have their own experience with, that's totally like authentic and true to themselves, but that's still based around kind of the whole overarching the music, you know.
Yeah, like your own little music matrix. I like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
I
guess it's like, you
no,
know, a multi-sided experience, you know. You have ups and downs. It's like life.
that's great. No, I have a really similar approach, or at least goal in mind. When I sit down and write music, a lot of times it is to reflect an experience. I get inspiration in bursts. I'm not very good at structuring my time when it comes to music production. And so I think a lot of times what happens is I'll sit down and write music when I'm feeling a certain way or have actually just gone through an experience. So I did that with guitar, and doing that with production has been really fun, just a brand new experience. So I think that's why I'm drawn to your music. I think that's why I immediately knew that, like I said, once the name popped up and you were in my library, I was like, well, he belongs. Yeah, this right. This is right. How did you meet our boy 23 Odd Cats? What kind of circles were you sprawling around in?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years has been super just like, I mean, I'd say the last 3 years in general for me have been really weird because I was in college for like a pretty large portion of like on and off, large portion of the music project that I've been working on. And the last few years, I've kind of been like, I completely finished college and just like adjusting to like life and everything was like it's kind of a real switch up. And then coronavirus happened and everything changed. Everything
Talk about
stopped.
a switch
and
up.
That was like like I'd say both of those things really pushed me further into the internet, because it was like, in a small town, there aren't always, vast opportunities, and there's not necessarily like always a ton of places you can go and meet new people. When you live in a town that has over, less than 50,000, 100,000 people, you've got, the small fraction of people that are into your personal interest and that go to, attend things generally. And then you've got, everyone else who's just never there that you're never going to see or interact with. And I feel like there's just, there came a point where I started to want to interact with more diverse people and more people that were doing things that were in line with what I was interested in. And I just wasn't able to connect with people, even people that, had really different motivations and goals. So I got really into Discord and Discord communities, and a few Discord communities with like Future Collective, and 23 Odd Cats was in there. And I had heard his music a decent amount, because actually the first track he played here today, I believe it was called Not Nice, or well, depends on which one you played.
Oh,
but
I
that
played
first track.
Yeah,
Which one was it?
I played the one you sent me. It was John Bang Bang.
The Bang Bang.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So same idea. The collaborator there, Jonathan Thomas, he's probably like one of the first people I met making music, and like longtime friend. We've toured together multiple times on the West Coast. Like awesome dude, killer music. He's been producing way longer than I have. And like he knows this group Moniker, who's they have releases on Saturate. They're pretty well known in the bass underground bass kind of circuit. I remember a while ago I saw that the two of them, 23 Odd Cats and Moniker, did some shows together, and I had like heard a bunch of Moniker's music, and I was like, who's this 23 Odd Cats guy? And like checked him out, and I was just like, all of this stuff is fucking awesome. Like I love it. It's great. Really, yeah, unique, innovative stuff. And like over the years, I'd kind of like seen his music here and there. But like the internet's such a weird place for me, and like sometimes I'm really outgoing and I'm like, I got to reach out to all these people and talk to everyone and get into a Discord community and like make a bunch of friends and like DM everyone on the friends, like on the online list. And then other times I'm just like, I literally like I don't know how to interact. I don't know how to like get in and kind of like interject myself in like an online community once there's like some flow and continuity and people have like things going, you know what I mean? It's like, where do I jump in the river to get started at that point?
Yeah.
But like with like sending people, like I saw him in some groups I was in, and we sent some tunes to each other. And like one thing led to another, and we started talking, and like he was a pretty cool dude, and like I sent him a couple of whips, and he was like, I'm really vibing with this one, and we started working on a track, and we got a little something going coming out at some point in the future. But yeah, that's kind of how we met. It was just a serendipitous occurrence of the internet.
God, I love that. I love the internet for that reason. I met him by chance in person at Yonderville. But you just said something that I don't have any experience touring. And I actually haven't had the chance to ask too many other guests about what their experience touring was like. So I'm gonna ask you, like, how did you get a tour? What was it like? Who were you touring with? And yeah, I mean, what was that whole experience like? How does that come together?
Totally. I mean, I've done a few tours at this point. And like
Have all of them been on the West Coast?
Yes, all of them have been on the West Coast. I've played some shows in some other. God, what other states have I played in? I've pretty much played on the West Coast. I've been interested in getting out, kind of playing more places in the last few years. But I wasn't super pushing to kind of go too far out of the West Coast. I like the West Coast. There's a lot of things to do here, you know. But the first couple tours I went on, just my friend Jonathan Thomas was like, "Hey, I'm coming out to like the Bay Area, gonna play some shows. Like, you want to come down and like hang and play some shows with me?" And that was like, the first year I ever did it, that was basically what happened. He just kind of hit me up. He was like, "Hey, you want to like meet up in person and like play some music together?" I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I do. Let's do it." Like,
let me check my No, yes, yeah, let's do that.
Like, yeah, I've got nothing going on. That's right. The last time we went on tour, it was much more structured. We had people we had hit up and played with before, and like, some new people we had networked with, and just we're kind of like, hey, we got a 2-week time frame, and we're trying to get as many bookings as we can, and just hit up all the people we knew, and yeah, just kind of put it together.
So those people, the dates together, like promoters, club owners, club managers, friends, I don't know, groupies, who you hitting up for shows?
More like yeah, like friends, label people who put on shows in different cities. Like on the West Coast, at least, there's some places up and down the coast that you kind of have a little like bass music, that have their own little like bass music circuits. Yeah. So like getting in with those people, and then just being like, hey, like once you have some dates that you're trying to book, hit them up and be like, hey, like if you're booking shows and like want to book us, like dates, here's available dates, and like try to get something together with them.
Cool. Have you ever rented out like, I don't know, like a tour bus or something like that?
Honestly, I've only ever toured out of like the back of my car, just throw everything in my car and hit the road. I have like a Highlander, so it's like, you can fit a lot of stuff in it.
What do you tour? Like, how much equipment do you have to bring on your tours? Do you like let a lot of the venues take care of? So I some background is I used to work at, before I moved out to Colorado, I was, and before COVID, I worked at a club and got, pretty familiar with the EDM scene in Madison, for about 8 months before Corona hit and everything shut down. So like I was getting like kind of close to what that was like, and seeing and meeting like some big names like Cali and whatnot. But I'm just one of the techies doing my job. So I was always curious about like what more of the underground people have to do in order to get, a tour going. And
oh yeah, sometimes it's as easy as like hitting some people up and just being like, hey, you got regular shows going, and like if they're stuff is like, if they're not booking major headlining artists or high echelon bass music producers, you're likely to get on a show pretty easy, especially if it's like some places are nice enough to do weekly or bi-weekly shows, And with stuff like that, it's like you can definitely like hit them up, and if they've got regular lineups, then just see where you can get in if you vibe and if they like your music. And
Yeah, it sounds like the power of the internet, really, again, or just like modern technology, being able to contact people on a whim. I'm always thoroughly impressed with how my perception of the music industry when I started and what I've learned so far are almost like complete polar opposites. And yeah, that was just a little bit more into that life, I guess.
oh yeah, no, it's not easy to do. Like, honestly, people who go on tour for like a month straight, like, that's pretty hardcore.
I bet. I mean, I can't imagine. I've never even gotten close. But I can't imagine, I guess, doing nothing but playing. I don't know, like fucking traveling all day, sleeping all day, fucking playing, staying up all night, and then like getting like the days in between to probably just like get your chops up if you're even trying to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Dude, so I want to ask you about somewhat damaged music, but before I do,
Oh yeah,
because I figured you might have some words to say on that. And
definitely.
that what hardware do you use? So I know you're Ableton native. Are you also a keyboard native?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't use actually a lot of. I used to be really into the gear, man. I used to love the gear. I'd be like, I got to get this and that and this, and like over the years, I've used a bunch of different pieces of equipment, and the conclusion I've come to is proficiency with like only a laptop and like a keyboard and outboard instruments. And in the last couple of years, I've gotten more into like kind of like actual studio equipment. So I've started putting together like, I have a couple of little rack units, and I can kind of like hook some things in and run sound out and kind of back into the computer again, and like use some analog gear. But for the most part, I try to keep it all like as in line with like what you would see in a music studio as possible. Because I feel like sometimes producers get like I used to be this way too. I got my Machine MK2 like back when I like was really getting into the production side of things, and like I was like, I'm going to be all about this and I'm going to use it for everything. And I did for a while. And then it came to a point where it was just like, it just wasn't helping me create beyond what I had already created, I guess. And I kind of saw the need to like rely on it less for like what I was doing, because I was feeling like the quality of the product of what I was getting from what I was doing with it just wasn't as good as it could be.
Gotcha. What is an outboard? Like a MIDI key?
Like well, I've got like a patch bay and kind of like a preamp, a compressor, and like like an audio reverb kind of effects unit. So I pretty much use that stuff. I have like a kind of keyboard. It's like a Yamaha 88 key that's just like, classic keyboard. It's got a couple of sounds on it. It's not really
does outboard
not
mean
really a lot of sounds, just a kind of a keyboard sounds.
The cheesy saw.
Yep.
Yeah. What, so is it like, so I was thinking, so for context, I have an MP and like an Akai MPD 226, an Ableton Push 2, and Novation, like just like single key, or not single key, just Novation keyboard, but it's like really small. Those are like the three pieces of hardware that I've chosen to stick to, because I also realize that I could get a billion more pieces of hardware, but I would just kind of be doing myself a disservice.
Right.
So I thought yeah, so none of my equipment actually makes any of its own like sounds or has like a sample bank or anything. I'm always working within Ableton.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I thought. I thought outboard may have meant something else, or maybe does outboard mean like it can generate its own sound?
No, I don't have anything that does any like in device sound synthesis. I use one of the it's like a 64 key complete controller.
Oh, okay.
I got one of those. That's pretty much all I use, like honestly.
That's pretty sick. Yeah, really cool. Do you like for melodies and whatnot? You'll like try and get ideas out there.
Oh yeah.
Or are you
yeah,
like jamming on the drums there too?
I'll usually like a lot of the time with like, especially with like leads and like more like leading melodic elements, like I'll sit there and have like a loop running and like even like some chords playing or like some background kind of like harmony element. And then I'll go in there kind of with more of like a driving melody and try to like pencil something in, and like usually it's stuff that I play. I'll try to get it played because like at least a couple elements of the song I'll try to get them like played live, because you get this kind of a little bit more authentic sound than you get in some electronic music when you feel kind of like it was almost like, or a little more organic. You get kind of like an organic side to it. And I always liked any kind of electronic music that I'd find that would have like a little bit of edge of like, it's not, you kind of like lose yourself in the idea that it is electronic. You get a little bit lost in the music and forget that it's electronically created,
You're at this schism where your finger is trembling over the quantize button.
Yeah.
Do I do it? No. I'm with you there. I remember seeing one of the earliest tutorials I ever saw. It was like make a melody, quantize it, zoom in, add natural like effect by unquantizing certain notes. I was like, wait a minute, can't I just like maybe learn to play the piano? It was just really funny. They were like, yeah, play all your notes perfectly, make sure you quantize them, and then in order to give it a more natural feel, I go in really deep and then I shift them so that they're not quantized anymore. And I'm like, well, why did you like
slightly offset the notes you could have just played?
Yeah, like. Exactly. Yeah, get them further from perfect. Yeah, that's I think a really important part of experimental music, not just bass music or EDM. EDM is extraordinarily structured. There are often formulas.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you need that 16 bar buildup. I mean, unless you're doing like a crazy fake out. But I think I love experimental bass. Which is what I've really I'm just calling it now as if I'm drawn to it. I think it's experimental music, and I like it because it's all about breaking those formulas. It's all about really breaking the mold, and it sucks sometimes to DJ with, but no, it doesn't. Like I mean, a train wreck every now and then is a small price to pay for innovation.
Oh yes.
What is somewhat damaged music, my friend?
Somewhat damaged is in fact the collaborative project between me and Jonathan Thomas, and we basically created it. We decided we would start an official name for the project a couple of years ago. The last time we went on tour, actually, and we started working on a few singles back then. And actually, we finished a couple of them. And we shopped them around and they just never found a home. And I had taken like a little bit of time away from doing like really intense like music production and release stuff. And I was just kind of like, I'm just going to go off on the production journey for like a while and then come back when I'm like ready. And like the project kind of sat and marinated for a little while. And then, this last year we've been stuck inside like for a lot of the year. And getting back to production stuff, we were just like, we gotta get this project restarted. And we opened up all the old projects we had, and we were like, these are cool, but like why don't we just make a whole new project, a whole new set of ideas with kind of where we're at now.
Yeah.
And so we basically in a couple of months wrote and produced this entire EP, 3 songs. And at some point it's going to be the debut Somewhat Damaged EP. So
well, I'm looking out for it. Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear that. What is I had a question. So I've never heard of Jonathan Thomas. Is that someone I should be? Does he have music out?
Yeah, he does have a bunch of music out.
Okay.
He's, I would say, like these days he does more like drum and bass.
Okay.
Although when I met him, and for a large portion of the time that I knew him, he was more into kind of like experimental bass.
Okay.
So he'd kind of do, a variety of different genres. He had kind of a house dancier side project and a couple of those kinds of things. But over the last few years, he's really focused in on like drum and bass specifically. And he's got some fire drum and bass stuff out there. Like he's got a whole bunch. He's got years worth of music in general.
I'll have to check him out. I remember my question. So that your Somewhat Damaged is a duo, or like so a project, not like a label. It's a duo.
Yes.
Okay.
That
cool.
is correct.
Yeah. So do you guys work on all the music together, and then I guess when it comes to live performances, are you guys planning on just like being a back-to-back group?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much I'd say like back-to-back, or like the last time we went on tour, we did like a Ableton live set that we played together kind of in a couple of stops.
Yeah.
So like something like that that's like really interactive. That's kind of what we're going for.
I can see so a huge goal of mine is to be proficient enough in Ableton to put on an Ableton live set. I think that would be one of the coolest things I've ever achieved. If I get there. And I can see that being way more collaborative than what my experience is on the CDJs, which are great, when you're back to back, but there is really only so much you can do.
Yep.
In my opinion, I feel like with Ableton and the right hardware, you can probably get a lot more done. Get that band feeling, and probably feel like both of you are actually contributing. I'm not sure. This is just my experience doing back to backs. It always feels like one person takes over, and then you gotta. I don't know. How do you feel? What were you?
It's a weird experience just in general, like doing a back to back with someone. Like I haven't done a whole lot, but like there's definitely like, I feel like going into it with Jonathan Thomas, like we definitely have like, I don't know what it is, but it's the way we look at things is really similar, or maybe it's like the end goal vision that we have is really similar, but we kind of are both like, all right, we're just going to like plan this out really well. So like, you do 2 or 3 and I'll do 2 or 3. And we just like kind of whoop back and forth, and like, just kind of however you feel it, but like, kind of have that little bit of like structure to kind of go on. And then, you can have your undetermined variables occur and enjoy everything in between.
So I'm really curious about your Ableton live sets. How did you go about playing like a whole set on Ableton? Because the way that I like, I've come across a few different ways that people do that. I know Ramzoid is somebody I look up to when he talked about, he's got some YouTube videos on how he plays sets in Ableton, and so does Mr. Bill. But those 2 examples alone are just like completely different.
Like I guess the way that I'm familiar with Ableton is like, you kind of, you're kind of queuing things almost more like DJ software.
But do you prepare tracks like as a whole, or do you have a lot of like new or just components that are kind of like part of the track instead of it being like a fully fledged production?
Oh yeah, like I've done it both ways, honestly, and I think it's really cool to just go set up like an Ableton live set with like a bunch of like half finished whips. Ooh. And then just like smash everything together and like see what happens. And like I think especially like going forward with like live sets and stuff, like that's definitely something I want to do more, is like just showcase weird original sounds that I've like made, and like putting all of the sounds together in kind of a way that's cohesive and coherent. So I also have the problem of like I can't ever stick to one genre. Like I'll be like, all right, we're gonna do this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, that's it. I've got to make some UK garage. Why? I don't know, but you know, that's just the rabbit hole that you go down, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm probably never gonna make one of these again.
Fuck yeah. I just remember, or not, I remember, I like to, when I'm DJing, I like to pretend like I'm making a new song with what I'm working with. And I felt like the best way to get that result, like absolutely, was actually just to be in an Ableton live set. But then some of the techniques I saw were like, you know, get a whole track that's already mastered and everything and cue it up on Ableton. And I'm like, what? No, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to like change the nitty gritty of the drums like in the middle of the set.
You want to be able to like throw a synth lead in there and then like have it modulate while you're like playing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's I've just had so many ideas, but go on.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like I've definitely wanted to see what it would take to get something like that set up, because like I'm almost daunted as to like where I would even start, because like my productions are kind of really in the box, you know, so you'd almost have to create a whole new way of producing specifically for like a live set.
Yeah, I think you're right. Typo was telling me before we had our discussion. I had him on the podcast like 2 episodes ago. There's this one guy. Tell me if you've heard of him. I'm gonna look it up right now. This guy, this fucking guy. His name is Mark Rebellet.
Oh yeah.
I think he's. I watched his video and like he like live samples the crowd, and I thought that was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I love Mark. Yeah, I had some friends who turned me on to him a couple of years ago, actually, before he was like gotten like super popular. But like, man, the energy that guy puts off is like, yeah, like he's always stoked about everything. He's always like. I don't know. He's just the most like honest, down to earth human being that you like would never expect to meet, and just is like that in front of like everyone on a camera, like behind the scenes. Like I've never heard anything bad said about this guy. Like he just nothing. He seems like he's just nothing but fucking good energy.
I just discovered him, and I think he's super talented. But I look forward to discovering that part of him. That's awesome.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like. I mean, when you see the stuff that he does too, like he doesn't have anything super complicated set up. But like what he does is awesome. And what he does is like interesting and engaging, but also like makes you, it's humorous. It's like, you don't have to totally take it seriously the whole time. And I feel like that's one thing I run into, especially with like, I've been around a lot of like dubstep music producers, and like, dude, dubstep producers take stuff so seriously sometimes. You're sitting there like, I know. Damn, dude, you make music on a computer and you're like angry about it? Like, what? I don't understand.
I love dubstep because it's so not to be taken seriously. The only way I can have fun with dubstep is if I'm like in a state of mind where like nothing fucking matters. And so I
feel like it embodies that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and then I started learning about it, and the people I met who were like really into, so in Madison, like it was just straight rhythm and dubstep, the club I was working at, and a lot of these producers I would meet, again, I was just like, what musical stick is up your ass? Like it's like, come on, like we're having fun here, are we not? And and the DJing was actually always way more fun. There was only ever one guy who I actually learned a lot from. I'm very non-conventional when it comes to my DJing techniques. I love train wrecking because it helps me learn, and it like so like I'm always taking risks that I shouldn't be. And there was this one guy, his name was Alex, and we're homies, but I drove him fucking insane because he had like he had been practicing on the CDJs, you know, like after the shows and everything, and he had learned all these tutorials. He had some really cool like tips and tricks like on lock. And then he would see me do something and he'd be like, why aren't you beat matching? And I'd be like, because that comes later. and it was just, you know, I guess it kind of circles back to everybody has their own way of doing things. And yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even over the years, I've like vastly changed the way I've done things and what I've done. Like, I'll go back and listen to some of my old projects and like mixes and like the stuff I used to do. I'd like try to mix as many tracks together as possible, and like my music was more like house and hip hop than it was like bass and kind of experimental, like right at the beginning. And then just like, I don't even know how I ended up where I ended up. Sometimes you just look at it and you're just like, damn, I just like went down this whole road and I wasn't really like thinking until like now.
I like to draw this parallel between experimental bass music and like the very early dubstep scene.
Oh yeah.
When Zomboy came out, like, I don't like new Zomboy. I'm just gonna get the Zomboy is an idol. I love his fucking whatever. I think it was his Nuclear EP. I listened to that front to back probably a million times, and you know, and more. And it's like, yeah, there was dubstep sections, but there were like also so many other different types of genres and rhythms like crammed into that album, and like just in particular songs. And I felt like early dubstep and like really when EDM and computer music was taking off, because I think computers were getting cheaper and more accessible, and the music industry was catching wind. I felt like there was a lot of variety. I felt like there was like a ton of different rhythmic and experimental shit going on. And it kind of just like broke down into these weird subdivisions, which might be, I mean, like drum and bass is kind of like, it's just a breakbeat looped over, you know, for the entire song. And I felt like dubstep was just like one part of like the evolution of computer music that someone took and like decided to make into a whole, you know, a whole rhythm genre or something like that, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then someone took rhythm and then made it angrier, and then they said this is death step.
Yeah.
And then someone made it more distorted and said this is tear out.
Yeah, exactly. But like if you go back to the Zomboy album, you'll hear like, I mean, I think Zomboy now is mostly tear out. But before, like he'd have like Mombathon like beats in there, like right before build up, and I'm like, yeah, like, and I don't even like Mombathon, like that's not generally what gets me moving, but when I hear it like in that context, I'm like, holy shit, no, this does get me moving, and I think what I'm trying to get at is, and what we were talking about how some dubstep producers are like so serious about what they do. I'm like, I think we need a little bit more freedom here. I think we need a little bit more fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when it was like a lot of what I was looking for and listening for was like, man, can I find a producer that can mix like two genres together that are totally not alike and like make it sound, you know, interesting.
Yeah.
I felt like the whole like initial, like, especially like the trap and the future bass, like the expansion of all of it. And like back in the beginning when like future bass was almost more like just like people who like looped R&B shit over like, you know, like organ sounds and shit. And it was just all like trap and like, it was like trap and like gospel, like R&B influence. And you're just like, you know, future bass became this whole thing, you know, multifaceted thing, and like it's almost more vast than it was before, but the diversity of all of it is like less mainstream and less available than it was before.
I hope this comment makes sense. You know who I look to when I think about like merging genres together? I look to Sublime. I feel like they're like one of the like pioneers of sampling, and I mean I'm pretty biased just because like I they were on the radio when I was growing up, but I like went deep into all their shit, and I mean they basically made ska, punk, like rock, and like they use so many samples in their music that I consider them a pioneer for all the shit that I do now. So I totally get that. Fusing genres that don't particularly belong together is actually my music. It's a vision. It's my musical goal. It's something that I strive to do in my mixes.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I take that part very seriously. Is trying to make two genres blend together in order to make something new.
Yeah, I've almost like over the last, few years that I was playing shows, I started like it was really hard for me to call it like bass music because I was doing so many things that weren't necessarily like all bass. So I started calling it like experiential bass music because I felt like it was more like, you're not just focused on the bass, you're focused on like kind of the whole experience of like everything alongside the bass. The bass is definitely like, one of the key components that glues all the different pieces and songs together, but like having that just, yeah.
And when did you go from experiential to greasy?
That was kind of that just kind of happened. That was just kind of the next step. I had done experiential for a couple of years and I was just like, well, it's kind of all I feel like it also had to do with the attitude of the music. My attitude of my music really changed a lot in the last couple of years. And I feel like it's gotten more like grungier and darker and like,
greasy.
Yeah, that's kind of what it came to. Like I was listening to like hip hop and like grime and stuff. And I was like, it's not like, what's another word that's kind of like that, but that's like kind of disgusting that kind of like fits with bass music. Like greasy. No one calls music greasy. That's not a genre.
Grease music, dude. I like that. Yeah.
Grease music.
Oh, that's so funny. Do you watch? Have you seen Trailer Park Boys?
Oh yeah,
dude. I only got hip to that show like a year ago, and I fucking love it. Greasy.
Oh, you got so much of it to enjoy too, man. Yeah. They're hilarious.
They're so funny, dude. I wanted to ask you, since this is a show about you, do you like have any other hobbies that keep you, I guess, invested in music? I feel like sometimes people get burnt out for plenty of different reasons, and I'm sure there's more to you than just your bass music.
Oh yeah, man. I've kind of just like jumping in the ocean there.
There we go.
Like,
yeah, what have you been into like recently? I
guess recently I haven't been into anything super interesting. Like, quarantine's got us doing things we ain't done in years or maybe even ever before.
Yeah.
So I was like, fucking around with like archery and kayaking and other stuff. And like, I've been kayaking for a number of years now. Definitely like got into that when I got up to the Northwest. Was just like, man, there's something about being on the water, but like not owning a boat. Like I don't want to own a boat. I've seen what that means. I don't want to do it.
Scraping the grime off of your boat.
Putting that thing in dry dock every couple months. Yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah, nah. But like another reason I moved to the Northwest is like I definitely dig the nature up here. And I feel like as I've left the desert, I've really appreciated the desert more. But I really like the kind of like inclement forests and like borderline rainforests that are up here. It's just way more my speed. Things are more laid back.
So
I like things that are more laid back.
Where exactly are you in California? Or if you are in California, I know that you said that you were from there.
I was in San Diego, but I'm actually living in Bellingham, Washington now, which is like about an hour north of Seattle.
Oh, okay. Wow. So real Northwest.
So I'm out in the Northwest. Yeah. I ended up at the opposite end of the country.
Nice. The weather's got to be super different.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. Like honestly, after being born and raised in San Diego, I got to this point where like the sun almost feels weird to be out in. I'm one of those people who like, I like being outside, but like, I almost don't like being out in the sun a ton.
Yeah.
And like San Diego, you can't do anything to ever escape the sun. Like everywhere you're going, you're going to get like maybe 60 days of the year that you get rain, and you're gonna pray for it when you do, you know, like. But up here, it's like, I don't know, the weather's more. There's more variety. There's more of a sense of seasons. There's more of a sense of like time changing and things changing. And I feel like sometimes when you get stuck in a place that stays the same all the time, you get like you stagnate, you know, in your own life. And I think that just like, especially with stuff with Squirrely Bass, man, that's just been like the thing is like, if I don't have anything that I'm doing that's like engaging in my personal life, like outside of music, like I have to find something, because it's like, it's those moments and those experiences that I have outside of music and creating music that give me the inspiration to create the music. And if I don't have any life or experiences outside of it, then I start to get like dead end, you know?
Very well said. I have had those thoughts almost exactly. So I have not really anything to add. I just feel like if I don't know how can you expand music wise if you're not expanding, or if you don't know how to expand in general.
A couple other things I've been into have been, you know, I've been growing houseplants for about 6 years now, and I did some really big amounts of propagation the last couple of years, and I've raised like several hundred plants now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like I'm like kind of pretty big plant operation there. Yeah.
So you got like a greenhouse, or you just got hundreds of plants around your place?
Basically just hundreds of plants around my place. Yeah.
That's pretty sick. Damn. That's like walking into a jungle. I vibe with that.
I feel like there was a point too where I was producing and I was like, you know, I really like the whole like nature melded with kind of technology kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
So as close as I could get to find like a organic mixed with kind of digital. That's kind of the goal, I guess. Kind of something that I live, you know.
I really like that. I was on a, this is related to what you just said, but has very little to do with music. I really like that energy too. I was talking to a friend once, and I think we were talking about overpopulation, and he actually tried to convince me, and I think successfully so. He was like, I don't think we're overpopulated. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I mean, we just don't incorporate nature into our lives. Like, and then I did some history, and I was like, well, let's think about it. I'm Peruvian, and the Inca. I have some Inca blood in me. So the Inca Empire had like 40 million people, like at its peak, and they had like I don't even know if they had wheels, and I just remember thinking, and he kind of opened up this door of, what if like office buildings had like plants all up, you know, or like skyscrapers where like had plants going on and vines going all up and down them, so that we could get more oxygen in the cities, you know? And it just, that was just a singular idea that he kind of planted by saying we're just not being creative enough by incorporating nature. And I like the whole thing that the idea you brought up, mixing modernity and nature together. I think I think it's a great idea, and it's leading to some really awesome ideas so far. When did you move out to the Northwest, like literally the Northwest?
It was literally about almost exactly 5 years ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
So yeah, like just kind of needed it was a big step in kind of change.
Did you have,
it had been coming for a long time too.
Did you move out there alone, or have any friends or family? Did you just say yeet?
I literally looked at colleges that I wanted to move to and where they were located in terms of what town they were in and what kind of opportunities they'd provide. And I said, this one looks great to me, and rolled the dice a couple of times and just came out here with nothing. No one that I knew. I had a couple friends in Seattle. That was about it.
Gotcha. Well, that's a story. So what college? What did you study? I just got out of prison, as I like to call it. But I went to like a really big university, and I feel like
Oh
my
yeah.
my takes I mean, mine are just very biased toward my university, and personally, I think I belonged in a smaller university.
I felt that way in university for a really long time, and I think it was only until I went to actual university that I didn't feel like that.
Mm.
And it was and I also had like I went to Western Washington University up in Bellingham, Washington, and I actually studied at there's this college there called Fairhaven. And it's basically an interdisciplinary college, and they focus on anyone who wants to integrate two completely separate fields that are potentially unrelated into something that is related. So you got people in there that are like, I like biology, but I also like nursing. And you're like, okay, you can study both of those together. Or you got people who are like, they want to study like liberal arts, but they also kind of want to study like law and social justice. So you have those people who wanted to do like half law degree, half like gender studies or liberal arts or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like you could mix anything, and I mixed basically marketing and music,
Interesting.
and kind of like try to do it in a way that I hadn't done it in my personal life. So I was like, I don't want this to be a direct study that's like I'm just studying how to have a successful like independent music project, you know what I mean? I
Right.
was more like kind of I want the clerical and like technical components of like marketing and background in like business to business transaction finance, that kind of stuff, um as well as kind of like music industry focused study, I guess.
Yeah, no, I imagine that you would probably at least come across some music industry marketing techniques while you're studying marketing and music.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think this is a deep question, but this is something that I ponder. Marketing is by far my weakest or my Achilles heel. Mostly because it's all done through social media. I mentioned this like almost
Oh
every
yeah.
almost every podcast, and like I know I have a really addictive personality type, and I'm also well aware of how Instagram and Facebook work. And if I and like that's like I'm their perfect victim or whatever. I won't get too
Oh yeah.
I won't get too negative. But the point is like how to as far as marketing as a concept
Mhm.
isn't that in my like I despite that I do think that I am like kind of like a business savvy guy. I've always been like kind of the entrepreneurial type, like going out, like starting this podcast, reaching out to you and trying to sell myself essentially.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but that's like, but when you get into the thick of it, I feel like it is so removed from the art that it feels so cold. Like when you start getting into like the numbers and like what time to post so that you get the most amount of people to see, like
Oh yeah.
what's hot and like, or like trying to manipulate, in my opinion, it's like manipulating people into thinking that you're hot, you're hot shit or that you're booming at the time. And that's all marketing ever seems to be, in my opinion. And I just want to know how you personally deal with or think about marketing in your career, because
Yeah.
I consider it cold, and I think it can't be good for the music in my eyes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like the social media aspect of it is like added a whole nother dimension of that like coldness that you're describing. And like I totally feel that, just like it for me, I have a very mixed relationship with all of that stuff. Like I feel like I can really get into it and totally disconnect myself from the way it makes me feel.
Mm,
Um, but then there's times when I'm like, I'm literally just totally focused on kind of how it is making me feel. Um, and like I just can't get into it. And I feel like definitely go between periods of like I feel really comfortable being on social media and like I gotta post all the time and I gotta be like regular and like interact with people. And then I kind of contrast between that and being like almost afraid to like interact and almost like afraid to go on social media or like hesitant to do so just because like you almost feel bad for sometimes the amount that you're doing when you go out there and you see a million other people posting all the things that they post on social media, and every single big artist producing their new track that came out, after the last one that came out 3 weeks ago. And you got big lineups getting announced and people going on tour, and like it can really make you feel like you're not doing enough and you're not doing anything when you are doing something.
Right.
And I feel like that, and like the real breakthrough I had, I feel like, was like really Discord and getting a place to get involved was like it really felt like it did when I really started making music the first time, like back in 2012, 13, 14, back in the inception of like when I was really learning DAWs and like went from not knowing anything to like putting a song on SoundCloud. Back in the day, it was uh like it felt so fresh and unique and innovative, and everyone was like encouraging each other, and like it was really inspiring. And somewhere down the line, like as the years go by, if you aren't regularly interacting with those people, you connect less and less, and you see them on the internet sometimes less and less. And sometimes people just are like straight up, hey, I don't want to deal with Facebook anymore, I don't want to deal with Instagram anymore. They delete their accounts, so you just have, they're doing their own thing, and like you can DM them anytime they want, but like you still don't have those kind of formative like hang out on the internet, like in a chat room with each other, kind of experiences that really like humanize everything that you're doing digitally. Because it's really easy to also just forget like everyone's a human being, and like you get, and on your social media feed, 99% of what you get is the best experience that these people are having and them at their peak. And in fact, behind the scenes, their life might be an unholy shit show.
Yeah.
And like they may barely be keeping their shit together, but like on social media, they look like they got it all. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah. No,
sometimes you
that's
just
yeah.
sometimes you just gotta like talk to those people, and you're just like, oh, it's just they're just a person just like me that like had their own really individually unique experience getting into music, but like somehow they're still like kind of in the same place that I am.
Right. I no, I completely agree. And even I mean, even innocently recently, I posted something on my Instagram. I got it reinstalled on my phone because some homies of mine were doing like a retreat, and I mean, this is about a year ago. I had to reinstall Instagram because a bunch of friends of mine had a group chat and it was only on Instagram. So I said, ah, shit. And I felt like I turned off all the notifications, so it hasn't been a problem. But like it always starts off with like, oh, like I can handle this. I'm just gonna post and not worry about like what anybody really has to think or say. But then you do have to worry about the numbers if you are like trying to get people to come to a show and whatnot. But
Oh yeah.
I did forget about what I was. Yeah, I lost track. So I recently just posted a picture of my friend, childhood friend, happened to be in town. He came up for my birthday. I had a great night with him, and got a picture taken. I was like, I was on cloud nine. That was definitely a peak, and I posted that on my Instagram, and that's what it was. And then looking at my Instagram, I'm sure there's like probably one edgy post, but regardless of that, I think it's just like, yeah, you're right. Me at my peak, me at like moments that like that I feel on top of the world and want, I guess, other people to see. And that is kind of selfish, and it's kind of weird.
It's weirdly like you almost feel like when you have the in-between experiences, like you drove there and someone flipped you off on the way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't get that feeling. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like that never happened. Well, maybe when EPROM was driving to his gig, he did get flipped off by some old guy that cut him off. Like, you know what who knows? Like,
yeah. Oh my God. I gotta say, marketing has been one of, I see how much success people make. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I really just think that some people who aren't very talented make entire careers off of Instagram and social media. And
oh yeah,
it's like, I'm sure that's not a hot take or anything groundbreaking. It's like, I felt like, and I still feel in a way that I have to make this decision as an artist. Am I going to engage in this like buffoonery that I, consider, kind of silly and fake, or am I going to, just make music and try and pursue this goal of mine? And, I at this point, I'm really just considering getting to the stage where maybe I can afford like a marketer or, a social media marketer, but I just, I can't see myself really connecting with people or like even running my brand through social media, just because I feel like it'd be so detrimental to like what I'm trying to do, which, if you listen to the other shows, it's like, I'm really going for freedom and self-expression, and like those monsters out there, man, they don't want that. They want you at your peak. And, I'm not always at my peak, and neither is my music.
Yeah, totally. And there's some expectation too of like, I don't know, just interact. I mean, the whole thing is this its own like monster. And I feel like I understand it super well, but I'm almost like reluctant or resistant to take part in it the way that other people do, just because it's like totally my brand and just the way I literally live, to just literally go against the grain of the way that things are supposed to be, And so when I'm like, people are all doing it this way, I'll be the one who turns around and goes the opposite direction, or like totally sideways. You know what I mean? Just totally something different.
But that way is no fun.
But then you get to see a different angle.
Yeah. No, wow. Yeah. I tend to, I think you'd get some people saying the same about me. I think I go against the grain as well.
And I feel like you can make that work to your advantage on social media, but you really have to be content with the fact that you are to some extent selling yourself. You know what I mean? And you have to be aware, like you said, when you're posting, there are some like really mechanical portions to like having a social media presence that make it not enjoyable, I guess.
It doesn't, I guess to get deeper into it, it doesn't really, it doesn't support the human experience. Mostly, I'd say with Instagram, I mean, Twitter has this weird exception. I think they still have a timeline, based system where like you can actually see things in real time. But Instagram for me, the second I uninstalled it was when they like just stopped doing everything based on a timeline. So it was an algorithm that was putting shit in front of your face. And I was just like missing lineups because of their shitty algorithm. Like fucking like shows and these people I was following, like they would just give me they would give me a show, like a local show, like 2 days after it happened. And I was like, fuck you, Instagram. and so I quit because I was like, well, if there's no timeline feature anymore, like that is, I'm not, who am I even interacting with anymore? So that's essentially when I quit. But I also feel like a goal, not a goal. We talked about merging genres together, and I think experimental and the things that we like to do are trying to take things that don't fit and try to make them fit. And those algorithms, Instagram, Facebook, they don't do that. They don't think like that. The people who program those algorithms, I don't think like that at all. So I feel like it's a losing or a zero-sum game at the end of the day, because you're just kind of isolating yourself to this like bubble that the algorithm is creating for you.
Totally.
Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Social media is such like a, I don't even know how to interact on it a lot of the time. Like I feel really that motivation will come in bursts, and I'll be like, I gotta like put all this stuff out there and like make it about me. And then like the second that I start taking steps towards that, I'm just like, I almost don't even want to like have some amount of myself in the public sphere the way that it has to be for this to, be a thing. I mean, for years, I never put my name on my project. And for years after that, I never even really uploaded any pictures of my face that were very clear.
Right.
Like I really liked to be more like kind of anonymous with it. But like as I've seen people kind of develop their presences, and like especially like social media people who are really good at just like get on the camera and say something and like put my track on and like it's cool. Like they don't have to do anything more than that. And if you can get into the mindset of kind of like, I'm going there just to do that, and it's just for myself and it's not for anything else, then like I feel like you can have like a healthier relationship. I don't think it's ever gonna be like healthy, but
Yeah, healthier. Like
yeah,
like going
harm
from
reduction.
like a homemade McDouble. Like
Exactly. It's a little better. There's a little less salt. There's a little less poison.
Fuck. I have one more question on here that doesn't relate to social media. Oh, no, it's not related to social media at all. I see you have an Audius link. Audius is like hot, popping off. I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about it, but generally they're pretty positive. What do you think about it?
Audius is cool. Like I like the angle that they're coming from, and I like the fact that I mean this is what we needed, I feel like, for so long, is like an alternative to SoundCloud that's actually good and that actually has like the interest of industry people. Because like man, I remember like 4 or 5 years ago there were all these like alternatives to SoundCloud. Everyone got pissed off at SoundCloud because of some update they did or some policy update. I can't really remember honestly, but like a whole bunch of like alternative services jumped up, and there was like
Mixcloud got way more popular than it ever deserved to be.
Mixcloud. There was one called Young Cloud. There was one called like Heart something. God, they were all basically the same thing, but none of them really had the diversity that others did. And, you know, they were flooded with a bunch of people that were like, buy my beats. Here's my J. Cole type beat. Yeah, Aesop Rocky type beat, you know, and you're just like, all right, cool. Like there's a place for this, but like this whole feed is literally a bunch of people. So like, I feel like Audius really with the angle that they came from, like they got all the people that were like waiting for something alternative to SoundCloud.
Oh, and, dude, like, I'm in tears.
Their platform's cool. I love SoundCloud too, and I feel like that's the only problem that I have with it. Like I love SoundCloud and I love the community that it's created. And like Audius seems to be creating a community similarly to SoundCloud, like the way that it did anyways, but I don't feel as connected to it. I feel like there's some fundamental component that's missing, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's like there's not enough interactivity on there, or like it feels really like it's all industry people. Like it feels almost like it's inaccessible to the average listener sometimes.
Anyone can post on there, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as long as you make an account.
Okay, cool.
And I mean, I don't know what their whole issue with copyright stuff is either. Because I mean, I know SoundCloud can be pretty draconian about that kind of stuff, but like, yeah, I don't really know about that side of it. I've always felt like the thing that they boasted about at the beginning was the, you know, high quality sound was what they kind of were like, we have music online that can stream at like a higher bit rate than, you know, Spotify and SoundCloud web apps do.
I remember not caring about that.
I felt like I could barely tell the difference. And like that's coming from like years of audio engineering experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the way that they're paying their artists though is really like the payment system that they have set up, and like the kind of we're trying to get you compensated for the interactions you get on your music in a way that's more quantifiable than like SoundCloud or Spotify ever tried to be.
Yeah, I love SoundCloud. I was a SoundCloud baby. I mean, how old are you?
Got to think about it for a second. 29.
Okay. I'm 24, so SoundCloud is just like I don't know, like when I was in middle school, that was all I was like on and listening to. And
oh yeah,
I don't know. It's the OG, and I'm just sad the OG doesn't want to change at all ever. It's
at least not in a good way.
Yeah. Well, so I remember talking to this one artist, and he was the first guy that got me on Mixscore. I'm not No, I am on Mixcloud. God damn it. But anyways, so I'm on Mixcloud because this one guy, I was like, hey, send me your mixes, and he was like, oh man, all my mixes got taken down off of SoundCloud, and I like just took a huge gulp because I got like 20 mixes on SoundCloud that are like not my music whatsoever. So I'm not sure what they did with their policy, but like most of my mixes are pretty clearly derivative work. Like I'm usually bouncing from track to track and train wrecking. So maybe they never like found a reason to like actually take my shit off. But I've heard people have had problems with copyright when they try and like remix or flip like really popular songs, which like, that sucks. Spotify doesn't fucking pay their people, and I don't know. Yeah, so I just haven't tried Audius. I feel like I'm just trying to get a bunch of people's feel for it before I actually like dive in.
I feel like it's cool, but I feel like, it just feels like something's missing. I don't know what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll keep that in mind. Maybe get back to you.
Yeah, give it a try.
For sure. Yeah, and I feel like they should have. The higher bit rate never stood out to me as a selling point. Because there's something about the quality that people can accidentally upload to SoundCloud that I really love. And I feel like it kind of birthed an entirely new sound, which is that like that grungy, this was not balanced well in the car type. Like that's a whole sound, that's a whole type beat right there. Like not mixed. And SoundCloud will always have that. And personally, I think if SoundCloud could figure out live streaming, it would save their ass for the next 20 years. Like, they haven't done shit for the last 20. So I don't know. I want SoundCloud and maybe Audius or Spotify to figure out live streaming. I think Spotify does it with like podcasts and whatnot, but dude, if one of these platforms could figure out, other than YouTube, that like just a full live streaming event that is solely focused on music, maybe doesn't have like a huge visual aspect to it like YouTube or Twitch, I think that would be killer. I think that would be the solution to, or the next step in a lot of people's minds, like maybe you and I, who are SoundCloud babies.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, I don't think anything will ever replace kind of the place that SoundCloud has. Like, I mean, for me at least, there's never going to be a place that has as much like consistent content, freshly available, like new music from the artist, cutting edge, that's like of a good quality. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Audius really is. I feel like there's some artists who put a lot of stuff on it and a lot of work into it, but unless you really curate a presence there, it's really hard to say that it almost has more to offer than SoundCloud does.
Interesting. Is there you know what, next time I talk about Audius with a guest, I will have made an account and like fucking give my own opinion. I have something to like work with, because I feel like I'm just digging and I don't really know. Like, I'm just like, what is this ghost that is Audius?
Oh yeah.
Well, man, is there anything you want to talk about as far as, maybe direction your project is going in, upcoming releases, people you're excited to work with, or festivals that you may or may not be trying to get into?
I mean, at this point, like I'm kind of like at a point where I'm like about ready to get some shows back together and start doing stuff. I feel like I'm either waiting for the right opportunity, or I'm waiting for like something really like a tour or something, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've really focused the last couple of years so much on production that I almost have like, I started out as like a DJ basically. So I've almost gone to a completely different place than I started in. So I feel like I need to do something to like get back there. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
for sure.
As far as that goes, like I'm kind of just like, when I play a show, I'm probably going to be regularly playing again.
Yeah.
But I don't know when the next one I've got's going to be. And until then, I'm pretty much just trying to put out like literally as much music as I can. Maybe not like an excessive amount, but an accessible amount.
Yeah.
I have, the last couple of years worth of whips. Most of it still hasn't been released. I'd say when I started this year, I had about 15 projects that were pretty much finished, and about half of them have come out now.
Mm.
A little over half of them, so, close to 3/4. But since then, I've probably written like, for a while, I was writing something new every couple days. So sometimes I go through, I think you said it too, you go through bursts where you're like super productive, and then sometimes where you're just not. And I'd say the last couple of years have been pretty productive. So I kind of have just this like a mass of stuff that I'm like slowly tinkering away with. I have like a whole like hip hop beats lo-fi project with a guitarist from San Diego that I've like basically recorded most of the tracks for, and it's like kind of got somewhere between like 8 and 16 tracks that I've like produced and recorded for it. And I got an EP with Jonathan Thomas. I've got a variety of other collab tracks that are in varying stages of completion with a variety of people, 23 Odd Cats included.
Hell yeah. Well, he's gotten a lot of shout outs here. Shout out, Wilfred.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad that you are. I mean, despite the fact that you don't have any live events coming up, I mean, neither do I, son. I mean, it's sometimes hard to get your feet on the ground with that, but I think you have the right idea with when you hit the ground, you want to take off running.
Oh yeah.
And that's something I learned, I guess you could say, the hard way. I was more sporadic with my gigs. I think that's something you acquire. So if anyone is listening, I think you really want to try your brand or establish a brand and a sound to go to people with when I guess you're trying to get gigs. So I think you have the right idea to sum it all up. If I want to end the show, but not we've been going on for a while, and the way that I like to end the show is by asking my guests if they have any advice for like brand new producers. Like if there was something you could say to yourself, let's say in 2012, when you were, I don't know, locked in a room trying to figure out what Pro Tools was and why it sucked. Like what what would you say to yourself then? Because I think that's the essence of the show. I can't produce.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd probably, I would tell myself all kinds of things. I would say all kinds of things if I could. Like it'd just be like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I think probably the most essential piece of advice I would give is like, and it probably wouldn't make any sense to me either. The hardest thing is how I would say it to myself that would make any sense. But like, simplify. Everything's simpler than you think it is. When you see these people and these producers making these synth presets, or you open a massive preset and you open a dubstep preset and you're looking at it in Massive or Serum, you're looking at it sometimes and you're like, dude, how the fuck did they make this? Like, they did all this crazy stuff and there's all these automations, and really there's probably like 6 automations, and there's probably like 2 LFOs that they're modulated from, and maybe like 2 envelopes, and you probably have, like, in all honesty, not too much that's like really complicated going on. But you might look at it as like a beginner or a newer producer and just be like, I like, like, I know what all the things do, but I don't quite know how he's crafting that like really detailed part of the sound. And just like, I feel like the last few years I've just realized like everything's so much simpler than that. Everything's just like sine wave, square wave, triangle, saw. Like it's so much less. It's so much less elaborate than I ever like thought it was.
So you think you were like overthinking like a lot of things at first?
Yeah, and even like when I do, sit down and do hours of production tutorials, you'd be like, these people speeding through how to make a synth preset with the sound, and like how much you actually get from it, I feel like is sometimes like it's questionable. I feel like another thing I'd tell myself would be to slow down and spend more time with each element of the song. So I feel like back when I started creating, it was really like I just felt the need to create all the time. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like, I just got to make something. I just got to like put some sounds together and make it as quick as possible. And I feel like these days I really approach things from like I'm going to do it as quick as possible, but I'm not going to move on from each component until it's dialed in exactly the way I want it to be.
I see.
And I feel like I didn't approach things with that kind of patience, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like when you're starting out and when you finally get the swing of like, let's say a basic formula of a dubstep track, sometimes you just want to take off. Yeah, you do want to take off running as far as, like making beats all the time. I experienced that when I finally got like a certain thing down. But then you do kind of, I think you can plateau pretty quickly once you find a formula on Ableton that works for you. I think it's surprisingly, there's like a really big learning curve, but I think it is also surprisingly easy to plateau once you think you've learned Ableton.
Yeah.
Who is, just so I don't miss anybody here, I do like your visual art, or at least your current like stuff on SoundCloud. Who's your visual artist?
So I have like a couple of people I've used for the little squirrels. That's a local artist from the town that I'm in, Kira. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Mulville, I believe. But she's on Instagram. She does more like tattoo art and stuff now, but all of her stuff is very like spiritual nature, all like very, very detailed line drawn art. And one of the guys that I'm working with now for kind of like more 3D art is another person from the town I live in. This guy, he goes by Future Self on Instagram. But he also produces music, and he's got really cool like abstract 3D art that he does. And I believe he's got a NFT out there too.
Oh, true. I swear I've seen that name before. That's pretty tight.
You probably have the NFT. The NFT game is so different, man. That's a whole nother world in and of itself.
Yeah, that was another thing that I flippantly disregarded until it blew up.
All the same, right there with you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna send you some visuals. So I make some visuals on the side. I just want to send you a video that I made for 23 Odd Cats. I just sent it in our little Discord chat there. But that's my shameless self-plug to you. Nobody else can see it, but if you do want to see it, you can go ahead and join the Discord, and there's a public invite in the description. You can ask me what's up, and I'll give you the cool visuals. Otherwise, it's look up braV on YouTube to the audience, whoever is in here. I can't really see how many people are watching right now, but Greg, dude, if there's not much you'd like to add, I feel like we've had a really good conversation. Without diving into, probably becoming better friends, I think I've learned a lot about your perspective on music and how you approach things and how you get the grease, Yeah.
Hey, I feel like we've definitely got to know each other on a musical level quite well.
Yes, I'd agree, man. And oh yeah, I'm embarrassed to ask this, but I'm gonna do it live on the internet. What does WIP stand for?
WIP, work in progress.
Oh my fucking god. Okay.
I know. I started seeing the term ID the last couple of years too, and I honestly had to ask someone about that too, because I was like, "What the set's an ID set? What's an ID set?"
like you think every song's named ID. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like you go to the set list and you're like, oh, they all say ID. Wait, is it the same song? They can't be the same song. They all sound completely fucking different.
Yeah. Fucking yeah. Okay, WIP is work because I figured out what a VIP was, or a VIP. I don't know if anyone calls it.
Oh
VIP.
yeah.
But I was so
VIP,
proud of
WIP.
myself. Yeah, VIP, WIP. I don't know, man. I can't keep up with these kids.
VIP, whip, flip, reflip, or what is it? Refix. There's so many. So many
I've heard rinse. There's a rinse. There's a. Was it? I don't know. Rinse, wash. I don't know. It's lots of different terms out there. But cool, work in progress. I like that. Now that, or I like that I fucking know what people are talking about now. All right, homie. Squirrely Bass. Do you want me to introduce the ID that you sent me, or do you want me to just play it as an ID?
Oh, absolutely. You can, well, you might just want to play it as an ID because, to be completely honest, track names sometimes change.
That is true. I will play it as an ID. Well, Greg, Squirrely Bass, thanks for being a part of the show. And
of course, hey, appreciate you having me.
We've had a great time. I appreciate you already being a part of the Discord community. By the way, so you're already in there.
Always trying to be more active, you know.
Yeah,
it's a struggle, daily struggle.
All good, brother. Well, yeah, hit me up anytime. I'd love to like actually work on something with you. Maybe
definitely.
I think that'd be really fun. And
anytime, man, let me know.
You betcha, man. I'm really excited that we got to have this conversation and live on the internet, no less. The internet that we've been raving about this entire time.
It started there. It's the start and end point of everything, right?
Yeah, just about. Fuck yeah. All right. Well, here's to everybody listening. I can't produce a podcast. Greg, you might want to mute yourself now because I'm going to play you out. So you might want to just say bye to the good people of the world.
Goodbye, everyone. Once again, braV, thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Awesome. I had a really great time too. Everybody, this is Squirrely Bass. This is an ID he has sent me, and it is for your ears and for your brain to explore his little what would we call it, music matrix. So go ahead, listen with open ears. I'm really excited to play the track. I've had a great conversation with my friend here, or a new friend here. And yeah, I can't produce a podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. I hate saying that, but I got to. It really helps me do everything. And if you like what I do here, please check out the description because there is a link to my Discord server where you can see all of the other weirdos and nerds that are like trying to get into the music shit. So if you like music and wubs and production and this conversation, you might be just a perfect fit for our Discord community. Like I said, I can't produce a podcast, and my name is braV. Peace. That was squirrely as fuck, y'all. Thanks for watching, man. Peace.